Morning. Greetings, I'm Kathy Green with Christian News and Interviews. Did you know that 35% of Black women experience some form of contact sexual violence during their lifetime? That's a pretty high statistic. 1 in 4 Black girls will be sexually abused before the age of 18. According to the United States Department of Justice, 1 in 5 Black women are survivors of rape. In the United States, 38% of Black women experience sexual violence other than rape during their lifetime. 17% of Black women experience sexual violence other than rape by an intimate partner during their lifetime. African American girls and women 12 years and older experience higher rates of rape and sexual assault than white, Asian, and Latina girls from 2005 to 2010. Among students, 11% of Black girls in a national high school sample reported having been raped. 40% of confirmed sex trafficking survivors in the United States are Black. And so it begs the question, how and why is this happening? Who's protecting these children? Who's not protecting these children? I remember years ago, I had a conversation with a woman. She was saying that she had moved a man into her home. Her little girl was an infant at the time because apparently whoever the father was, he had abandoned her. So she has this infant girl and she moves a man in. And he lived with them until the child turned 5 years of age. She saw this man as the father of that little girl, and she thought that he saw himself that way. She went to church one night to Bible study, and she left the little girl, and the little girl at this point was 5 years old, left the little girl alone with him because she didn't think anything of it. He had been with this child since she was an infant. Long story short, he did unspeakable things to this 5-year-old child, and thank goodness that this child told her mother what happened. But that has haunted me ever since she told me about it, because I think, oh my goodness, that child is going to have that memory for the rest of her life. And that child happened to be brave enough to speak up. But what about all the children who are not speaking up and who are suffering in silence? I saw the Aretha Franklin movie recently. And thank God Aretha turned out just fine and she lived, for the most part, a happy life. But her life started off really rough. Listen to this. Aretha was one of 5 children. She was born in Memphis in 1942, and her family moved to Detroit when she was 4 years old. At an early age, Aretha showed her talent in music, joining the choir at her father's church. In fact, she could replay a tune on the piano after hearing it only for one time, and she was when she was 7 years old. Growing up, Aretha was highly influenced by her father, Clarence Franklin, who was a famous Baptist preacher. She and her siblings were mostly raised by her father's secretaries and girlfriends after her mother, who couldn't take their father's notorious womanizing, left their home when she was 6 years old, and she died when Aretha was 9 years old. Now listen to this. With the sexual environment that surrounded her, she became highly sexualized. We're talking about Aretha. At an early age, she became pregnant at the age of 12 and gave birth to 2 children from different fathers by the time she was 15 years old. And so it begs the question. Now, Aretha grew up in a well-to-do household. She grew up in a mansion in Detroit. How were these people getting to her? Why was she not protected? I'm sharing her situation because people envision poverty when they think of unprotected young girls. But Aretha didn't grow up in poverty. Her father had plenty of money. He hobnobbed with the likes of people like uh, Martin Luther King. That was one of his friends. But yet, here she was left exposed. And not only did she have one child at the age of 12, but less than 2 years later, she was pregnant again by somebody else. So she was promiscuous. She was just left to fend for herself. And she was actually promiscuous. And I don't blame her for it. I blame those who were in her environment who didn't teach her any better. Because any girl under 18 really does not have the right to consent. But because she was thrown out there, she was looking for love in all the wrong places. So some of the young girls who are being victimized are young girls who are looking for love in all the wrong places. And then others are just falling prey to monsters. And so I will just end by saying this. People always say Black Lives Matter, but I'd like to say young Black girls matter. And they're not there to be victimized. Every young lady has the right to grow up and pick her own mate. She shouldn't have to be subjected to her mother's boyfriends or her perverted uncles or her parents' buddies. That's not what girls are there for. So if you have a young lady in your life, regardless of race, talk to her about what's going on out here. Let her know that she can come to you at any time to inform you that there's something strange going on in the water. Let her know that no matter what kind of threats that have come down on her, she can let you know. And she needs to let you know if she's being threatened by some man or coerced or intimidated. Every young girl has the right to grow up and pick her own mate and not be subjected to the men who happen to be around her by happenstance. That's all.